Looking for a lost pet? Let me show you how animal communication can give you immediate details of your pet's whereabouts. If you have been frantically looking for help to locate your missing animals, please listen to this podcast. In today's episode, I will talk all about animal communication and how it can greatly help looking for a lost or missing pet. I hope this podcast can give you a greater understanding of alternative means to locate your animals. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a certified professional animal communicator and pranic energy healer. I offer remote and in-person animal communication and energy healing for all kinds of animal issues, whether they are alive or in spirit, as well as providing animal communication training workshops and mentoring, and I also help locate lost animals. If you listen to episodes 1 and 2, you will know that animal communication is simply telepathy. Telepathy uses words, thoughts, images, sounds, smells, and feelings, or anything to do with the 5 senses. And it can be done remotely, whether your animal is in a body or in spirit. The same physics laws of telepathy applies to talking to an animal in spirit. First, let's talk about what animal communication is not. Animal communication is not magic, it's not psychic, and it's not map dowsing. Animal communication is not a psychic reading or guess. Rather, it's a direct telepathic communication with your animal to get details on your animal's whereabouts. Animal communication is not the same as map dowsing. Many animal communicators can do map dowsing as well, in addition to communicating to the animal, but it is not part of animal communication. Now, let's talk about how animal communication can help to find lost pets. Booking an animal communication session can greatly assist in locating your missing and lost pets. I will connect with your animal remotely using their image and their connection with you to get as many details as I can. Then we can have a phone session to discuss details, suggestions, and look at Google Maps together. And I can also find out if they are still alive. If they have already crossed over, I can still talk to them in spirit, as I mentioned before, and get details of how they passed and where their body might be, so you can locate their physical body. Listen to episode 7 on talking to animals in spirit. If they are still alive, I can find out the following information. If they have any injuries, if they are getting food and water, if they are off on an adventure or they left for a reason, or even that they're truly lost and they can't find their way back. If they left home for a specific reason, and if so, what do they need from their humans to resolve the issues, whatever's going on in the household? And if they are willing and able to come home on their own, then I will get as many details as I can from your animal. So first, I find out details of how they left home. So when they left home, I ask or find out how they escaped. If it was day or night, and sometimes I can get a sense of direction if it was daylight when they left home, based on where the sun was overhead. That helps me get a compass direction. If it's nighttime, obviously I can't do that. If they took off from the front or back or side of the house, they could tell me that. What they passed along the way after leaving home, all the details of what they remember seeing. And if they crossed over any roads, details like what type of road it was, paved versus gravel versus busy versus quiet. If they passed any buildings or structures, or seen any other humans or children or animals. Next, I get details of their current whereabouts. I get details of their current location, including what they see, hear, smell around them. Are there any people or animals around them now? If they are indoors or outdoors? And if they were picked up by somebody who may be feeding or taking care of them, I can get details and descriptions of what these people look like, about their vehicle, what the vehicle looks like, and details about the drive to the current location. And if they are still outside, I can get details about their current surroundings around them, what trees or flora or fauna or man-made objects or anything around them. If they see any buildings or structures, signs, man-made objects, vehicles, or any roads or anything that I can get details about. Then I can find out if they can come home on their own. I can find out if they're willing and able to come home on their own, or if they need to be coaxed or convinced to go up to a human for assistance. I can ask them if they are willing and they feel safe enough to go up to a human to get help. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes they're too timid around humans, or they've been traumatized or something, and it's a difficult thing to ask. Other times I can negotiate with them and stay with them and talk to them while they're doing it, which is amazing. I have done that with animals, talking to them while they're doing it. Then I can find out if there are any vehicles or people around that they can go up to be found. If they see vehicles, I have them wait by the cars until somebody comes back to the vehicles to get in. Where there's vehicles and where there's a parking lot, there are humans. Let's talk about when your lost or missing animal does not return home. Animal communicators cannot guarantee that your animal will be found. We can only provide details from a direct telepathic conversation with your animals. And unfortunately, animals cannot give an exact street address of their location. I wish they could. Believe me, it would be a lot easier for everyone. Also, keep in mind, animals are on the move. They do not stay in one place indefinitely. I can ask them to stay in one place if we know that you're going to go search for them, if they're willing to stay in one place. But if you don't ask them to do that, they're going to just keep on moving around. So sometimes you need a second or third session to get more details, because the first session I've talked to them for 2 or 3 hours, and the second session I may talk to them for another 2 or 3 hours to get these details. So sometimes it does require multiple sessions, especially if they're on the move. So a second or third session might be needed if they have not come home or have been found. Sometimes the details also do not pan out. As an animal communicator, I can only do my best I can possibly do to get as many details and your animal's needs for you to start your search. Keep in mind, you are asking an animal to recall from their memory of the things that they saw. If you booked a session and your animal has been lost already for 3 months, you are asking the animal to recall details from 3 months ago. And oftentimes an animal cannot recall many details, or sometimes the details may be skewed based on what they can remember. For example, an animal can show me an image of a yellow statue, but in actuality, it's a tall sunflower. But what they remember is something tall that was yellow and with a yellow ball at the end that looked like a statue. So if you're looking at the actual sunflower, or if the animal is looking at the actual sunflower while I'm speaking to them, I'm going to get a much clearer image of an actual sunflower. So the point I'm making here is that the details are only as accurate as your animal's memory recall. So please, if you have a lost or missing animal, contact me immediately to book a session. Do not wait. The longer you wait, the less clear the details are and the harder it is, the much harder it is. So try to do it immediately. So one reason for your animals not returning home or finding them is that unfortunately they may have already passed. The animal may have run away because it was sick and it knew its time was near and did not want to have you witness their passing. This does happen. Sometimes animals want to go off and die alone. They don't want you to be involved, or they don't want to have you witness it or see it. Cats a lot of times do this, and many other animals. So sometimes that is the case, why they have left. And other times, an animal may have had an accident, such as getting hit by a car. And I know it's an awful, awful thing to think about, but I can ask your missing animals this question, and I promise, if they tell me they have passed on, I promise to deliver the truth to you so that you can get closure. And even though they've already passed away, I can still talk to them for another 2 hours. I can talk to them in spirit, like we talked about. I can check in with them. I can see how they're feeling. And, any questions, I can call you and you can give me more questions. So anything that you need to help you overcome the grief of that. I know it's a horrible thing, and I really do not like delivering news of a missing animal that they have passed away. I do not like delivering that news, but I do it anyway because I want to help and give you closure. I don't want to drag you through the mud any more than you already are. So please, understand that. That may be a possibility. I talked about this in episode 7 called Talking to Animals in Spirit, if you want to know more of the details that I talked to them about. Another reason for not returning home or being found is that sometimes they do not want to be found. So some pets leave home because there's a problem in the household. It might be from a relationship with a human family member, or it could also be a problem with another animal in the household. Or maybe they're not getting what they need from their persons to be happy. There's something that they need, and it might have to do with themselves, not with you. But sometimes they're not getting their needs met, and they're just tired of it and, kind of fed up. And so they'll leave for that reason. I can find out what they need and find out, if these needs are met, if they're willing to return home. And many times they do, if their needs are met. Many client animals have shared with me that they are tired of being misunderstood and not heard by their humans. As you know, after listening to my podcast, animals are divinely intelligent beings and are trying to communicate to their humans, which are closest to them, but the human may not understand what is being shared, and they're not getting it. And of course, this is not always the case, but I've had cases where the animal ran away until the person adjusted their behavior, and then they return. You're not expected to be an animal communicator like me, but I think I've heard from some animals that they're a little bit tired of, them being judged as unintelligent, and, they keep trying to talk to their human, at least sending them thoughts, and we're not hearing them. We're just not hearing them for their intelligence. Please also understand, you cannot force an animal to come home if they don't want to. Animals are free beings, just like you and I, and cannot be forced or coerced into coming home. If there are issues going on with the other humans or animals in the household that prevents them from wanting to come home, these issues need to be addressed, remedied. Otherwise, they will run away again, just like a child runs away. They will come home maybe, or you'll get them and find them, and they'll run away all over again. So these things absolutely need to be addressed. And I definitely will ask them what it is that needs to be addressed so they're willing to come and stay home. Some animals may even be in hiding and refuse to give me, the animal communicator, any details of their whereabouts. I've not had this happen too many times. Usually I can get details, but I have had it happen if they absolutely are in hiding and do not want to be found. They do not want the whereabouts to be found. So they'll actually kind of trick you. They'll kind of throw you off their scent, literally. So if they are in hiding. They do not want to be found, especially if they're close by, like right around the corner from your house or maybe the next door neighbor's house, and they're hiding out for a purpose. They're not going to give me details. But I can find that out too. And a lot of times I can negotiate with the animals and, give them an understanding. Sometimes I'll talk to the humans and the animals live so they can negotiate with each other, and things do get better. They really do. As an animal communicator, I do my absolute best, like I mentioned, but it's up to the animal to be willing to provide the correct details and have the desire to be found. So another reason for not returning home or being found is that they have no intention of ever going back to their family, none whatsoever. And I hate to report this to people, but I tell them the reason behind it. If an animal tells me that, then I get a lot of information as to what's behind it, what can be done, what can be changed, and all of that. So sometimes animals that run away, they've done so for a reason. There may have been abuse or trauma directed toward the animal in the household, and they have no intention of ever returning. They will choose to live out their life as a feral animal or be adopted by a foster family or a new family. But chances are, if they're abused, it's very difficult to get them to trust humans again. It takes a lot. If you are in this situation, I can help with a communication session on their new forever home family and recommend some Bach flower essences for trauma, specifically for trauma. And also, I can do a trauma pranic healing session. It's called pranic psychotherapy, and that helps remove trauma out of their chakras. So those memories that they have of abuse and trauma won't be there anymore. I work a lot with rescue horses, with wild Mustangs that were rounded up in the BLM government roundups. And I work with the Wild Heart Sanctuary in Park City, Utah. And she has a lot of rescued Mustangs, and I do a lot of healings on them, a lot of trauma healings, because they've had a lot of traumatic abuse from humans. Another reason for not returning home or being found is that they are truly lost. Sometimes animals that have been lost from other locations that are not their home territory, they literally may truly be lost, have no clue where they are or how to get home. I've had cases like this where they were lost far away from their home and even perhaps in a forest area, and they are truly lost. They have no recollection or scent markings or anything because they're so far from their home. Maybe they were driven far from their home to go to an event or something. So usually animals will leave a scent marker, as you know, but sometimes did not mark for maybe they were running too fast. They forgot to mark. This does happen, or perhaps the rain or snow have covered up some of their scent. They may be disoriented due to a lack of food and water, so they may have marked, but still be disoriented. So the best thing that I can provide in this case is tons of details and try to get them to backtrack the way they came or go up to another human, a random human, or another domesticated animal to be found. Because if they're hanging out with another domesticated animal, then that animal is not too far from somebody taking care of them. I've had a case where it was a successful case where 2 dogs went missing during a horse show. So they were taken way far away from where they live, and they were at a horse show, and they went missing. And I'll read you a little bit later of a testimonial, but amazingly, I got the details and I got them to come back to specific, very specific areas on their own. And the last reason for not returning home or being found is that they have already been rescued, sold, stolen, or adopted out. And again, I know this hurts to hear this, but it's a reality. And sometimes rescue centers or fosters, they may have the best intentions, but because there is no universal lost and found system, it's all decentralized. They may not be found by you. It's very decentralized, and you have to make a million phone calls and shuffle around. There is no central United States system that you can go look for lost animals. They may be shuffled around to different caretakers, then adopted out, or even euthanized if they are sick or old. Some humane societies will euthanize them within 72 hours. So sometimes on adoption listings, you may not find your animal because they may be listed as a different breed, especially mixed breeds. They usually get it wrong. And other times, unfortunately, your animals may have been stolen right out of your yard, for example, or taken to another city or state to be sold for money. I've seen this over and over again in lost animal cases. It's horrible, disgusting, and sad, but it's a reality, and I can't tell you. I can get all the details, but if they've been adopted out to somebody else and shuffled around, it's going to be very difficult, to find them. So let's talk for a moment about lost animals in foster care. It's important that in foster care, the family lets the animal know if they are holding an animal. Say you're a foster, and you are holding an animal, and you're trying to find its owners and it a permanent home. So it's important to let the animals know if you plan to keep them, number one. And I can communicate this to the animal if they're going to continue looking for the animal's family or if they're going to keep them. The animal will also need to know that they have decided to stop looking for their family and plan to keep them. And in that case, I can ask them or ask the animal about what kind of forever home and forever family they would like. And this is great because, some animals, they want to be around children or, people with lots of energy. They may want to run and, do agility training, and other animals want to live with an elder person or maybe just one person and not a big family or no children. So they all have their preferences, so it's really a nice thing, an important thing to ask. Even if you're a foster and you want to keep the animal as your forever animal, it's good to just ask them if this is okay with them and if they're okay with this person or if they want another type of, situation. It's nothing personal. It's just, what they want. So I can ask the animal, again, about their forever home and family, what they would like. I can find out what their needs are.
This
and what they
podcast
need
was
in
created,
a
produced,
relationship with a
recorded,
human or a
researched,
family.
and edited
I
by
can
Lowly
also get
Jane,
details about
and it's
their
a
prior
product of
family
Lowly
and tell
Jane
them
Animal
what it was
Communication
like,
and Healing.
or find out what it was like with them. And I can find out if they want to be reunited with their family or they'd like to move on. This is really important because if they do want to be reunited with their family and you're holding them or keeping them, there is a depression and sadness that never really leaves them. So it's really important to talk about that. So let's talk about microchipped animals. So just because an animal has been microchipped does not mean that they will ever be found. There is no universal database, and there are multiple microchip companies which require different types of scanners. And as we have seen in the Maui fires, there is no easy way to identify microchipped animals. Actually, I lived in Hawaii, and many of those animals, if not every single one of them, are chipped, especially the cats. They're all chipped, and they have their ears cut to show the chip. So, microchip does not guarantee being found. So typically, veterinarians and rescue operations, they have scanners on hand, but as I mentioned, they may not have the right scanner. And in the case of Maui, they're all over the internet asking people to borrow different scanners because of that. So there's no universal system. And then in addition, if your address and phone number is not up to date with a microchip registration, you may not get a phone call ever. I've had a client share with me that the microchip company said it was not registered to a phone number that led to a person. So they had a microchip, but it didn't lead anywhere. It literally was a dead end. So they had to give him a second microchip. So they called it, they said it was a non functioning number. So whoever chipped them, it could have been a rescue center or the volunteers that go out into the community and chip feral animals. But it didn't lead anywhere, it didn't do any good. And lastly, I've seen cases where the microchip company was charging clients an annual fee to keep the registration active. So make sure you find out those things before you chip the animals, or they may have already been chipped, and you need to register yourself and your phone number and your email and all of that. So let's talk about GPS tracking. So there's many GPS tracking devices on the market. They're rather large, but as you know, Apple's AirTags are very small and they're GPS enabled, and they're being used now on pet collars. So if you go to the Apple site, it says that the AirTag is meant for locating items, not pets or people, but Apple does have a patent on its UWB technology and cites removable tags attached to a pet's collar as a possible scenario in their filing for a patent. So you be the judge of that one. They sell pet collars with the Apple AirTags attached on all over the internet. I've seen it on Amazon, everywhere. But Apple is claiming that it's not meant for locating pets or people. But again, in their patent says otherwise. So obviously, the collar or tag must remain on the animal to be effective. And the cat breakaway collars may, of course, come off very easily. Sometimes the animals don't wear the collars while at home. Many times, we take off our animal's collar and just put it on the leash or the lead. And they may not be wearing it at home or inside or even outside in the backyard. If they're in the backyard, they may not have a collar and have escaped without their collars. I even had a case where the pet sitter removed the animal's collar while in the backyard before the animal jumped over the fence and escaped from the yard. But despite all of this, I feel that a GPS device or AirTag is a lot more effective than a microchip. This is just my opinion. But out of all the lost animal cases I've worked on, not one microchip has ever brought an animal home. Here are some suggestions for locating your animals. Number 1, use social media and local apps, even if it's not something you typically do, because the majority of people out there will post on social media. So look for local and neighborhood Facebook groups for lost and found animals. And there are very local, narrowed down groups where they're just perhaps in your town or neighborhood. Number 2, the Nextdoor app is really great. It's effective because it narrows down your search to your local neighborhood. I've even had a client who found their animal posted on the Nextdoor app. Number 3, after your session with me, combine all the details I provided for you and go out to the area with the smelliest food that you can find and an article of clothing that has your scent on it. So, of course, the smellier the food, the better, because animals can track scents very far, depending on the animal. And the next thing would be to post missing animal signs within that certain radius that we determine based on the details that you get from me and from your animal. Number 5, within this radius, contact all the shelters and the rescue centers and, of course, the veterinarians. To make your life easier, create a PDF flyer so you can just email it to them. Because a lot of them, they may not return your phone calls right away, if at all, and they also may not allow you to come in and look at the animals, as was the case during COVID. So just create a PDF flyer with a picture of your animal and the details, not too many details, that you can just send it to them in an email. And then don't be afraid to talk to your neighbors. Get out there. They may have seen your animal. Do not be afraid of your neighbors. I know we don't know a lot of our neighbors, but it's a good chance to meet them. And it's also great because they may have seen something. Number 7. So I want you to imagine that you have a bright tube of light in a baby pink color. It's going to be bright white with a baby pink undertone. No fuchsia, just like a soft pink color. And it's coming from your heart. You want to imagine this light coming from your heart directly to your animal's heart. So you want to have a strong tube of bright baby pink, and you want to have a heart-to-heart connection. So this is your heart-to-heart connection where you can try to talk to your animal. You may even get answers, or you may even see images or get random thoughts. So try to send this heart-to-heart connection out to your animal and keep that turned on when you're looking for your animal. The next thing you want to do is you want to visualize your animal coming home to you, and you want to visualize every detail, including the animal jumping up in your arms, you cuddling with your animal, feeding your animal, and just keep doing this positive visualization. Keep doing this, as many times as you can possibly think to do this throughout the day and night and before you go to bed. And then the next thing is you need to control your mind going toward the negative. You do not want to visualize a worst case scenario because literally you have the power to manifest the good or the bad. So if you visualize the worst case scenario of them never coming home, it's not going to happen no matter what. So keep the visualization positive. And then next is to visualize a giant beacon white light coming out of the roof of your house, like a giant spotlight coming out of the roof of your house, and you want to imagine it's going skyward, like a big giant beacon. The reason for this is because animals can actually see energy. If they're near the area, they can see energy in a way that humans may not be able to. And I can ask the animals or your animal to look for the spotlight to find their way home if they're not sure the direction of their home. So now let me share with you some beautiful testimonials clients have shared with me after doing lost animal cases. The first testimonial is a cat named Gayla who came home on her own in exactly the way and manner that we discussed during the communication session. So here's a testimonial. You are an excellent communicator. You went above and beyond expectations. It was very thorough. Thank you so much for communicating with Gayla. That really eased my mind just knowing that she's alive. Gayla came back exactly in the way Loli told me she was going to come home, and came through a certain window in the house after being in the woods for 3 weeks. The session brought us closer than ever. J.M., Flagstaff, Arizona. The next testimonial is a beagle named Ollie who was successfully brought home after I coaxed him to go up to a person to be found. The client called me while I was still talking to Ollie, who agreed to go up to a human, and the client said that Ollie ran through an orchard, ran up to a person who then called her on the phone immediately because Ollie had a collar on with the phone number. So this is all while I'm talking to Ollie. It was amazing. So here's a testimonial. My dog Ollie was missing for almost 7 days. Ollie is a beagle, and he has escaped many times, but always returned home the same day. So I was really worried this time, to say the least. He didn't just run off from our house either. He ran off from an unfamiliar area where there were lots of forest and wildlife. I was scared, and I knew Ollie had to be frightened as well, as he was an inside dog who sleeps under my covers at night. A few hours went by from our original call, and I received a call that someone had Ollie. Someone saw him running through an orchard. When the person called for him, he went right over to her. He still had his collar on, so she was able to call, and I picked up my baby right away. I then called Loli to inform her that I was going to get Ollie. Loli was so excited for us. She genuinely cares about the work she is doing, and that really shows. Loli went through the transcript with me of her and Ollie's conversation while he was missing, and she was coaching him to go find a human or to find an animal or the nearest house. Those few hours between Lolly and me speaking, she was communicating with Ollie, helping him find his way out. She was telling him that they were looking for him, and I believe that Loli brought my baby home. If it weren't for her helping him find his way out, I truly believe the outcome would have been different. I can't thank Lolly enough. I'll be a client for life. Everyone is so happy to have Ollie at home. Thank you so much for helping bring him home. BM, Santa Barbara, California. The last testimonial is about 2 dogs that were lost at a horse show far away from their home. Here is a testimonial. I wanted to share my experience with Lolly Jane, Animal Communicator. Some background. I compete on horseback almost every weekend, and my dogs are like my shadows. They go to every horse show with us. They are used to traveling and being in new places away from home. We actually rarely even keep them on a leash because they do not ever leave our side. They're kind of obsessed. I run a horse farm for a living, so they're with me all day, every day. That being said, we were at a horse show, and after an accident, I had to take my boyfriend to the hospital. Some friends decided to try to help us out and let our dogs out to potty. They got scared and frantically started looking for us at this facility and could not find us, so they ran. I heard people talking about dogs going into survival mode and losing their minds when they are lost and scared, but I've never seen it happen until then. We looked for these dogs the rest of the night and the next few days at the show facility. Finally, we spotted one, but she would not come to us. She would just run and not even look at us, even though I know she could hear us calling her. We were out in the big fields in the farmland, and they were just running. They had no idea where. I would never have thought that my dog hearing my voice wouldn't stop her in her tracks, but she had always been that way. Other members of my family that she knows came to help us, and they also saw her and called for her with the same result I had. I was at a total loss of what to do. I didn't leave and go home knowing that they were out there and still alive, but I also didn't know what else to do to catch them. We tried food, we tried leaving things with our scent, which all helped in the end, but we couldn't get them to stop and come to us. After a random Google search, I came across Lolly and her phone number on Lost Pet Psychic website. It was funny because I called the lady who actually resided in Hawaii, where we were, on the first website, but got no answer. It was also Labor Day weekend, which I knew would be hard to get hold of anyone. But something told me to call this number. I was extremely skeptical. I also heard stories about animal communicators, but I've never spent the money on one or believed it to be true. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Of course, I wanted to try everything I could to find them. Given the situation, Lolly made time for us and spoke to the first dog that we had seen several times. She told her to come back to our house, to our horse trailer, which we stay in the living quarters. My dog told her that there were strange people in there and she couldn't go back there because her people were gone. This floored me because there were strange people in there, strangers to them, before we left for the hospital to help us. And the dogs were very upset because they knew something bad had happened. She told Mike that those strange people are gone and your people are there waiting for you. She told her not to stop looking until she found our trailer and to go inside. The sun was setting and we were still looking for her, and I was again very skeptical on this phone call was a waste because we had not found her. Crazy enough, something woke me up in the middle of the night, and I looked out the window and my dog was just standing there next to our trailer. Of course, I jumped up but stayed cautious because I was worried that I would spook her again. So I slowly opened the screen door and said her name, and she jumped right inside, wagging her tail. She jumped up on her bed and was so happy and relieved to find us. We had been within 10 feet of her several times that day, but she would not ever come to us because she said she was so scared. But now, after talking to Loli, she knew it was okay to calm down and come to us. I don't believe in coincidences, and I think everything happens for a reason. So this experience had made me a true believer. I'm so thankful that I randomly picked up a lady in Florida to reach out to and that I gave it a chance. After we found the first dog, we had almost lost hope on the second dog as no one had seen her at all, and she was much older. I scheduled a new session with Lolly, and she spoke with her and told her to come back to the horse barns and not to stop until she found someone in the horse barn. For several reasons, we finally had to go home and hope for the best, hanging flyers and speaking with everyone who lived around there. A couple of days went by, and there was another horse show going on at the facility. And sure enough, people began to spot her. They called us and they told us where they had seen her. And of course, we drove back there several hours away to find her. We are so blessed and lucky to say that we brought both dogs that were missing home where they belong. I can't thank Loli enough, and I truly believe we would not have had the ending that we did without her help. A.M. Walton, Kentucky. That brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you have a much greater understanding of the value of animal communication in helping locate your lost or missing animals. Book your animal communication session now. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain, as well as opening your mind, heart, and spirit to your deep connection with your beloved animals. Visit my website at animals-speak.com. I also have upcoming Animal Communicator training workshops. For more information, please visit my website at animals-speak.com. And subscribe to my monthly newsletters for events and workshops. Join us next week in episode 10 for chakra balancing and energy healing for animals. Be sure to follow and subscribe for special segments only available to subscribers. And as always, love and gratitude for listening to the Lolly Jane Animal Communication and Healing Podcast. This podcast was created, produced, recorded, researched, and edited by Lolly Jane and is a product of Lolly Jane Animal Communication and Healing.